And good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, depending upon where you are around the world. I'm Marcus Holmes, the HR Passion Guy, and I'm bringing you yet another installment of Passion Fridays, where we bring passionate topics, where we show you people who are living in the center of their passion on purpose, that it might inspire you to get about the business of living more passionately. So, whether you are watching us from where we're springboarding this afternoon for me on LinkedIn Live. We are live via Restream on YouTube events, Twitch TV, and on Facebook Live on the Marcus R. Holmes page and the Love and Stuff community. So shouts out to all of you, and I hope you will take a moment to click share, tag 5 of your closest connections, 5 of your closest Facebook friends or Twitch TV or YouTube event subscribers to join us in what I know will be a wonderful discussion with an exceptional human who is living in her passion on purpose. And I know I created a little bit of a teaser with that opening invite for some of you. I posted some time ago here on LinkedIn that I made a trip to France. I really did, but I didn't go physically. I went via Zoom. And I said in that teaser, what happens in France, does it stay in France? Well, hopefully not. Hopefully, this thought leader in the space of humanizing IT, the things that she will share with us will go global, that you will want to think about them if you are a CEO or business owner or HR professional or employee or someone who wants to become an entrepreneur, that you will think about what humanizing IT and humanizing your organization means for you and how it can help you drive more meaningful connections with your customers and stakeholders and a more meaningful experience for the people who work there to create an ecosystem that is more human. And so I hope that you will enjoy the opportunity to talk to our thought leader today. I want to tell you a little bit about her. She has a vast amount of experience, but I want to share just a little bit of her experience with you as I hope you are clicking share to invite others to join us. A recognized top 25 industry thought leader and 2021 Women in DevOps list, Simone Jo Moore is the editorial director of the Era of Humanizing Humanizing IT, I'm HR, docuseries. Contributing author to Very SM Unwrapped, Applied and ITIL4, High Velocity IT, and other international certifications, DevOps Institute's ebooks, and a contributing reviewer of the European Commission and Sinophen-based field guide on managing complexity and chaos in times of crisis. Simone Jo Moore takes things beyond technology by combining it with her HR, organizational change, and complementary health background for a deep leadership experience shared through writing, consulting, training, workshops, conferences, podcasts, and social media. So I'm excited to be connected. This is my French connection, and I'm excited that Simone Jo Moore is here with us today, and I want you to join me in welcoming her by clicking share and tagging someone to join us in this discussion. Hello there.
Bonjour, mon ami. Hello, g'day, wherever you are in the world.
Bonjour. Yes, I that's about it that I can say. I don't know. I took French back. I think I shared with you. I took French back in 9th grade, and it's been maybe downhill ever since. I haven't used it, but now I have a French connection, and I can glean more than just French from you, and maybe great wine and cheese and beautiful scenery behind you.
Speaking of which, it is after 6 p.m. It's a summer's evening, so a nice cold rosé while I'm having a chat with a mate is a really good thing to do.
I love it. And that chat with the mate brings up for me, where are you from?
Well, I am Australian. And born and bred and have been living in France now for 7 years. So if the accent's a little bit twisted or a little bit funny, or sometimes I get the vocabulary a little bit confused, that's why.
And I said that only, Simone, because you said mate, and I think that's probably more Australian. So I wanted people to be able, maybe there's some folks in Australia that will watch this, and I wanted them to resonate and be cheering you on, even though you're in France as well. So thank you so much for your time today and joining us. And thank you for your time with me. I'm telling you, it was revelatory for me. And I think it will be for anyone who wants to learn more about artificial intelligence or humanizing IT, or learn more about their passion and connecting them with gratefulness. So I wanted to just open and you talk to us a little bit about when you say humanizing IT, or when people hear that, what would you hope that they would understand about that humanizing IT? What do you mean? And what has your work space been like leading you into this work?
I think when I talk about humanizing IT, it's quite funny. Normally, I mean that funny, interesting, not funny, ha ha. But
Mhm,
in that interesting way that technology has really driven human beings. I actually mentioned this today when we were in a working group. But um, human beings have always done this. Man makes tool to make life easier. Man
mhm,
uses tool. I have a different way of living and working now. That's great. And as a
mhm,
result of that, I've now changed thinking and concept and that.
mhm,
Oh, it can be better again. Man
mhm,
again invents a new tool, and the
mhm,
cycle goes on. So we've
mhm,
constantly been driven by creating, innovating, making, according to the context of the time, whatever that time might have been,
mhm,
or is, I should say. And so, technology, in some ways, or the emerging technologies, regardless of what those tools have been,
mhm,
has driven us, as human beings, into a certain way of being or a certain lifestyle, or that kind of thing.
mhm,
And as a result of that, I think we're in a really exciting time, because we are now, I believe, really rediscovering our humanity
mhm,
within the context of emerging technologies.
mhm,
And that we're now looking at the technologies of how it can really make a difference to, we want to be working with it, not the other way around. We want us to be driving the technology, not the technology driving us. So
mhm,
for me, when I think of an organization, any organization that we work with, if you were to throw a spotlight on that organization and it cast a shadow, it creates a skyline, a shape or a form.
mhm, mhm,
So when I think about, when an organization has changes in its skyline, those changes are a reflection of the changes in the business culture.
mhm,
And that business culture is being changed in the context of the society in which it exists. Right?
mhm,
Now, at the heart of that is the understanding that the changes in that culture are actually a reflection of the changes within our people.
mhm,
So, as our world changes, so do we as people.
mhm,
We adapt and we're building our resilience, and we have to remain fluid in the way we approach change beyond this digital transformation.
mhm.
But really, if you're looking to reshape your skyline, then you have to be ready to confidently bounce forward from one change to the next. And the only way to do that is to understand and work with the changes within the people, because that is what ends up changing the skyline of the organization.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. Um, I'm very interested. I'm fascinated by that. And I'm also fascinated by another part of your work. It looked like you froze there for 1 second, but I think we're fine.
All
Um,
good.
a- and something you say, it's natural to change. And you talk about being a business and technology mixologist, that there are these four key principles that you use. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about each one, if you will, of people connected, of knowledge shared, of possibilities discovered. I'm fascinated just to hear those words together, and potential realized. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. So, in all the different frameworks we have, whether the frameworks we have to practice in finance or HR or OCM or in IT, um, every framework or a method or approach has guiding principles behind it. And so what I've actually found is these 4 principles have stood me in really good stead, regardless of which organization, industry, or framework I'm working with. And it's really interesting because we need to have the right environment and guidance to reconnect and stay with our core values and unlock, I guess, bringing our whole self to achieving the goals within the organization. And the other thing that guiding principles do as well is enable us to experience freedom within the moment, because we have the guidelines there to help us maneuver, but within that space we can be as creative and innovative as we want. Every day brings new choices and a new world of possibilities. For me, it's not just about who you are, but also who you want to become. And that's where these principles are really important, because they represent an organization's philosophy. Whatever the principles that they have, whatever that they have had espoused on their website, are they actually really living them in life within the reality of the day-to-day of the organization? Are they sustaining and growing irrespective of the changes that are happening? So principles are inherent within a culture, and everyone understands that they're important to establish our compass, for our expected behavior and decision making. So the very first one is always people connected, because that, a human center of gravity can change. As I said, this skyline change happens because there are changes within people. And when the balance is skewed one way or another in how people are interacting and how they're connected, it really affects our ability to build our resilience and find equilibrium within our team or within the department or the organization that we're in. So it's really important that people can move with an ebb and flow, want to be recognized and participate in change as a natural occurrence. We don't want to be, forced, forced out of a it's nice to be comfortable, but we only shift if we're slightly uncomfortable, and that's okay. Your stasis is always going to shift, but we want to build ways in which our people connect and explore the culture, explore the interaction behaviors, how the communication methods we use, the environment in which that happens. If you want to create deep functional expertise and success, and have that flow through the individual, then you need to create that psychological safe space and understand how people connect. So that's the first principle. It is only when people connected that we can then start sharing our knowledge. And knowledge is a natural byproduct of our connections, and it's the lifeblood of any organization. If we want the organization to be able to engage across different facets, then we have to build that collaboration and understand what kind of knowledge and where is that knowledge, how is that occurring, how is it coalescing, where is it stored, how is it moving. And this is why knowledge management needs to be looked at from a strategic level. It's not just a knowledge article on a service desk that helps you solve a problem. That is important. Don't get me wrong about that. That is critical, and it helps build people's capability. But if that is your narrow view of what knowledge management is about, or a knowledge base is about, then you're going to miss the boat, because knowledge is about giving us the ability to make better decisions, to be more accurate and relevant in terms of our business learning and that type of thing. So knowledge management, there's a lot of facets to it, but it needs to be built in at the strategic level across the organization. And people understand this is part of our lifelong learning culture and our feedback and reiteration that happens through our connections and interactions. So knowledge shared.
Yeah. And I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
If I can, just to let those that are just joining, whether you're on YouTube events or Facebook Live or here with us on LinkedIn Live, I'm talking with thought leader Simone Jo Moore, who is in France. I'm enjoying a day in France again. I'm telling you, friends. And what happens in France shall not stay in France. Those Vegas rules don't work. We're going to be sharing knowledge here because we're building connection. I love it. And I wanted to double back to that just a little bit. Simone, what would you tell to organizations, large or small, about building that people connection? Because it's become, for some, somewhat difficult in this environment, right? That we're currently in, and people say that we're coming out of. Some people are still in the trenches of it, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
what would you advise to that CEO or that CFO or COO or entrepreneur? What would you advise to them about creating these kinds of connections?
Well, I think first of all, look at what's currently happening. That's so important. People forget, just start where you are. It is actually a principle to understand, start where you are and then get a holistic overview. What is already happening within the nexus of your environment? This is part of that relationship nexus is not just a straight organizational chart. Right?
Mhm,
It's not just a straight up and down and left and right. There are
mhm,
so many relationships and knowledge connections that are occurring,
mhm,
on the diagonal. Now, we used to call them what? The water cooler conversations or the
mhm,
lunchroom conversations, or as you bypass someone's desk,
mhm,
And
mhm,
but even now it's happening, a sideline chat in Slack
mhm,
or a quick WhatsApp message or,
mhm,
these things are happening. So really take stock of, yes, we have the tool sets and there's different ways it's being used, but understand what they are and why they are. Why are they using them this way? Have we
mhm,
got, crossovers? Have we got one department that's isolating because they're only using this tool and therefore not getting the cross pollination from
mhm,
the other departments and things
mhm.
like that? So it
Yeah,
really is, a culture around how we collaborate, how we communicate, and then what tools and technology that we're going to use to enable that.
got it. It sounds like a network organizational analysis, kind of, where you're evaluating the relationships that drive
Mm-hmm.
business results. You're evaluating maybe even the email sentiment analysis, where who's communicating with who, and is it formal, informal? As you said, the
Mm-hmm.
Slack channel, who's communicating with who, and what are the results of those relationships and connections?
Yeah,
So,
that is the lifeblood of the way the information and knowledge is flowing.
mhm, yeah.
And so you want to get your finger on the pulse about how that's working, and don't
Mhm,
just look at the data. Don't just, I mean, machine learning and things like that are brilliant at trying to, at helping assess all of this stuff. But walk, walk the floor. Now we
mhm,
can do that on a physical level, but walking the floor also means now that we need to carve out time and observe. You might chair a meeting, but allow that conversation to flow.
mhm,
Really hone in and listen actively. Listening actively isn't just hearing, right? Hearing is a physical faculty. Listening
mhm.
is a choice,
Mhm. I love that.
right?
That might be my hashtag today, Simone. Listening is the choice. I love it. Because I
Yeah,
think you're
and
right.
it's
Sometimes we're chairing the meeting for the sake of the meeting and not really with the intent of hearing these maybe bilateral or parallel agendas that might rise up, that might inform that master agenda, right? We're just not really listening. We're navigating and trying to get people to go in the direction that we're going instead of really listening and seeing who's interacting and how and why. I think that's brilliant. And maybe you should, I
yeah,
don't know if you do that in your workshop, but you should have a mastering the meeting through active listening, because I am not a meetings person. I like there to be an agenda, because I think we spend far too much time in our life in the meeting. And at the end, we're like, could this have been an email? So I
oh,
think it's,
agendas are wonderful. Having that structure really does help focus conversation and
yeah,
focus thoughts into a particular direction, definitely. But through that
yeah,
people connection and knowledge shared, we get possibilities discovered. So that's my
yeah.
third principle. I mean, what explore, there is a better way. What is it that might be holding us back, or what is it propelling us forward that we could take advantage of and that we could hook deeper into? It's
Mhm,
continuous, it's an evolving environment. So
mhm,
curiosity is probably one of the most fabulous traits that you can have. Yeah, you want a
mhm,
bird's eye vantage. We've talked a little
mhm,
bit about that, but then you want to deep dive. You want to check out,
mhm,
what are our little potholes versus our Grand Canyons, right?
mhm,
So that we can have a view if our business vision and mission is actually, maneuvering towards where we want to go. What's our journey here? But
mhm,
in order to discover those possibilities,
mhm,
imperative
mhm,
psychological safe space, empathic leadership, safe to fail experimentation. We want to jumpstart people's thinking. We want their behaviors and actions to evolve so that we can work with innovation and transformation and really understand, because if we want to move into realizing our potential, really understand from those possibilities. Are we just doing, cheaper, faster, easier, greener, which is great. That's still, but that's optimizing what we already have. Okay. Or are we moving into the technology is now allowing us to do old things differently? Okay, so we're still doing the same things, but now we're able to do them better, right? Because of that, which is great. So we're doing the old things in new ways. Or are we truly doing new things? So then we move into a different quadrant. We're now doing the things we wish we could have done because now we have the technology available, which we didn't have before. But the fourth quadrant is my favorite. And I don't really like, it's not quadrants, because for me, it's actually it's all a mesh. You're still doing this stuff, but we're actually, moving into the outer planetary moments, I guess. But it's like now we've got the possibilities of imagining things we didn't even know could exist. So in realizing, we're discovering these possibilities, we've got a potential here that sometimes we didn't even know. And the critical factor, I think, for organizations in this principle of realizing your potential, quite often we look externally. We're looking for the silver bullet with that technology. We're looking, can I just press a button and make it happen? Wave the magic wand, and quite often, that you can get advice and guidance from external solutions, understanding the context in which we're living, but often the capability already exists within the organization, and we just need someone to help them see it and use it, And then if we have a gap in our capability, then let's look for solutions externally and look at how we can mix them together and create intelligent solutions across the frameworks. See, that's where the mixology comes in. I don't want to call it the next normal. I want to can this word normal. Normal is that's a different status for everyone, right? I'd like to just say, what is the next way?
Okay.
Rather than next normal. What's the next way? We're looking for what's better way of working that we have now that we can embed into our day-to-day, and what it gives us is a new jump-off point. I said start where you are. It gives us a new level of start where you are, and then you've got a new jump-off point that you can take. I mean, let's face it, you didn't come this far to only come this far, right?
Right.
Let's stand on the edge of that planet and look to the next one.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. And I love how you talk about before, identifying the gaps, fully explore what you're capable of doing with what you already have. And I think you're right. A lot of people want to jump ahead of that and say, but we don't know what we don't know. And so let's find out what we don't know and see how we can build on the things that we have internal relative to that before externally seeking resources for gaps. So I think that's awesome. Now, this framework, can you give us some examples or an example of where you have seen it just explode? Where has it worked well? What projects? What
I need a little sip before that one.
We're talking with Simone Gilmore. She's all the way in France. I'm saying all the way in France because I'm here, of course, in Detroit, Michigan, in the Midwest of the United States. And I love that we all can go visit Simone right on her terrace with a great glass of wine. It's 6 o'clock there, which is perfect time for that. It's noon here. Drop in the comments.
6 p.m. Make sure you put the p.m. It's not 6 a.m.
Yes, 6 p.m. It's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here. Drop in the comments whether you're on LinkedIn Live or Facebook Live or Twitch TV or YouTube events. Where are you and what time of the day is it there? It's about 80 degrees. We're expecting 89 degrees here today, but I'm enjoying...
You're going Fahrenheit and I'm trying to think in Celsius.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had that conversation before. I'm like, let me convert. Let me go back to that 4th grade science trying to convert.
No. That's why we have apps.
There you go. There you
go. It's currently 29 degrees Celsius here.
Got
at 6:30 p.m. So, yeah.
Got it. And so give us some examples of where this has just been revelatory or explosive or
Oh,
powerful within
wow.
organizations or
Wow.
project or
Wow, wow,
program?
wow. Do you know what? I think this is powerful in, look, I have been in the most incredible, passionate week that I'm so grateful for. I've been in the Women Tech Net conference all week,
Mhm.
and it's just, you asked me about examples, and I have to say, my brain and my heart, you notice I'm wearing my hearts today, I am so full of knowledge and interaction and everything, and the stories and the experiences from all the organizations that
Mhm.
have been part of this conference. I mean, we're
Mhm.
talking about, 100,000. I know, just it's been phenomenal. So when I
Mhm.
think about, examples of where this has taken off really well,
Mhm.
I think that organizations are doing this at different levels. You
Mhm.
know, they
Mhm.
they will, some are really focusing on the people connected bit at the moment. Others are really focusing on their knowledge management so they can understand those connections and so on. Um, wow. Uh, You know what? It'd be so cool if I had any of those organizations that feel that they've actually got this magic formula together.
Mhm.
Do you know what? It's a formula, but it's not really magic per se, because you still have to work at it. So I don't
Mhm.
think there is a perfect fly zone. I think that we have the science of flow, but we still have that wear and tear, rest and repair iteration
Mhm.
that we need to go through. This
Mhm.
is a dynamic, living, breathing way of working and
Mhm.
being.
Mhm.
So as such, we're looking at topics that the organizations are going across the board in trying to understand where they are. And it really is about teaching people to fish. you know
Mhm.
Once they look at what they've got, if I wanted to go in and fix it for them, I'd be a contractor. I'm not a
Right.
contractor.
Mhm.
I advise and guide. I'm a consultant.
Okay.
And through the workshops and having experiential learning and those types of things, people come to understand what it feels like, not just the thinking of it. Because,
Mhm.
there's lots of certifications that, I've trained and facilitated over the years, which are, formalized exams and things like that. But I think the experiential learning is so much more.
Mhm.
Taking that theory we have from certifications, whether you're doing simulation games or, as part of your well-being programs, as part of your L&D programs, as part of your everyday working, building in that safe to fail experimentation. Oh, that didn't quite work this way. What if I tried that way in the process instead? You don't have to change a whole thing. Just
Mhm.
change, just start with something small. And
Mhm.
uh, you know, it's not always the giant bells and whistles announcement.
Mhm.
Right? When you're shifting the skyline of an organization, when you're shifting that shape and form and creating a new model that comes from that culture, those shifts are sometimes very subtle.
Mhm.
And yet all it does is it just feels different. It just feels better. It's just nicer to be at work, or I'm enjoying having that conversation. And even when it's crap, because it exists, so we go through the cycles. I think one of the most critical things about the leadership side in the organizations, when it comes to putting principles in place and providing the space for people to become this way, is really about um, emotional agility, not just emotional intelligence. Let's take it a step further. Let's say, being emotionally agile, which takes practice. It's all about practice. And we don't always get it perfectly right, but that's okay, Because when you're prepared to deal with the rah-rah and yay and ring that bell and we got that huge win and
Mhm.
that's just incredibly fabulous, we also have to deal with the messy emotions too.
Mhm.
And that's also a skill. That's
Mhm.
part of the competency of being
Mhm.
emotionally agile and
Mhm.
being an empathic leader. So
Mhm.
I think, yeah, name an organization. You know what? I think, do you know what? Organizations have to become a destination company. There's an
Mm.
awful lot of talent out there now, and there always has been. And we've got a talent shortage in a sense. And, you know, an organization can sell us a job, they can sell us a role or a position description, and we get in there and it's not quite what they sold us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
disappointment when it doesn't quite fit the values that we saw on the website and the lovely looking way in which they work or the little comments. Living the reality isn't always there.
Mhm.
So I think this is where organizations need to be what I call a destination company. They've got to be a place where we want to be.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
that
if
is
you're
awesome.
not where I want to be, see ya.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often, when I'm talking to, I've got a couple of mentees, Simone, and I talk to them, and they're, one of them has had his share of organizations. I'll say it that way to keep his anonymity. But what I say to him is if what they sold you isn't 70% of what it actually is, you got to
Mm-hmm.
come to terms with whether or not you really need that other 30%, and that's who you
Yep.
truly are. Whether or not you can be in that organization as an ambassador to move people toward that other 30%, or whether or not that's someplace that you need to not be long, right?
I
And so
call
I
it the
tell them
butt
if they
factor.
sold you a good bill of
Yeah.
sales, but it's 50% of it, you're really you're
I
really in the
call it
closet.
Yeah, I call it the butt factor. I'm what they would probably call a recovering perfectionist, right? There is no such thing as perfection. It leads to all sorts of ills and strains and mental health issues. And yeah, it's okay. Not a good place to be. Perfectionism doesn't exist. Okay,
Yeah.
we're always aiming for it. It's always kind of a goal, but you know we've got to be a bit kinder to ourselves and to the people around us when it comes to that. I call it the butt factor. So to give you a good example, I mean, we must have looked at, I can't tell you how many houses that we looked at, you know, when we first moved to France. But,
Mhm.
you know, we did a recce tour, a reconnaissance, you know, a year before. We had a good look around different areas because every area is different architecture, different feel, different things. So we sort of then narrowed down to whereabouts we might like to live. And then you start looking at the kind of house, you know, do we want to actually a project one where you're completely, you know, rebuilding something that's old, or do I want
Mhm.
something more modern and I don't have to do so much work? You know, there's a whole list of stuff. But we call it the butt factor, and the butt factor applies to anything that you're
Mhm.
looking at.
Mhm.
And the butt factor is this: I like this, but, or that's a really nice dress, but that's a really cool policy, but that's a great team I think I might like to be a part of, but this organization's values look really cool, but.
Mhm.
So the second you use that word, but, you have to ask yourself, can I live with the but?
Mhm.
Because the other stuff's there.
Mhm.
Your decision is really about, can I live with the but?
Mhm.
Can I live with the messy bit? Is
Mhm.
the messy bit permanent, or is that
Mhm.
something I can ameliorate?
Mhm.
Is that, do you see what I mean? So it's the
Yep.
but factor.
Yeah. I think that's great. We're talking to thought leader Simone, and you can see why more. We are having our French connection, and we're inviting you to join in, talking all things humanizing IT, but also emotional agility, which we've started to talk about a little bit. I hope that if you are watching us, like Andy K on LinkedIn, who I think we got a laugh out of him when I said what's in
Andy,
Vegas.
hello.
The Vegas rules don't live here. What's in France, we're bringing all around the world. I hope that you will click, share, and tag some other folks to join us in this discussion. I see some folks on Facebook. Deja LeBrit, Marilyn Hamilton has also joined us. Folks on LinkedIn, folks on Twitch TV. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick break, and then I want to talk to you, Simone, a little bit more about you. I want to find out about some of the things that bring you passion, looking at the beautiful landscape behind you. What's the work that fuels you? What are the relationships that fuel you? And maybe I'll just ask it from a singular point of view for your four principles. What are some of the things that you're grateful for that has to do with information sharing, that has to do with people connections and possibilities discovered? We're on Passion Fridays, and we'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. I want to tell you about an event that's happening to kick off Father's Day weekend next week, and it's a quick commercial, and we'll be right back.
What? You mean Marcus Holmes and the Love and Stuff community is kicking off Father's Day weekend with a movie fun night live on Facebook June 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? Oh, that's dope. Y'all better get them tickets, yo. Weebay told y'all. Don't act like I didn't.
Now, if that face is familiar to you, it should be because Weebay, nickname Hassan Johnson, was one of the stars of the HBO series The Wire. And so he consented so kindly to do a quick shout out for our movie night that's happening next weekend. It will be live on Facebook. So you should come to the movies with us at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be featuring independent films, short films, so that we can encourage independent artists who might not get as much a look on some of these platforms. We're putting their material out. And so you definitely want to join us. You can go to the link that will be dropped in the comments across all platforms so that you can get your ticket and you and your family can enjoy a time with your dad as you kick off Father's Day weekend next weekend. So we want to do something special there. And I wanted to bring that commercial in. We're talking to Simone Joe Moore, who is in France. I'm excited to say that because it's one of the places I want to go. And I'm telling you, I've been, but I haven't. So I've gone in Zoom with her, and she's been kind enough to share not just the beautiful background that you see behind her, but to share some of the things and the work that brings meaning to organizations and for which she is passionate, and I would say grateful. So as we go into this, I want to talk to you about what are some of the things that you're grateful for. And I just want to double back because you are from Australia. You were your fourth generation service person. Thank you for your service. And now you live in France. Tell us what that part of the journey has been about, and what are the types of connections that have fueled you from there till now.
Wow. Because I have to say, this particular week has been a culmination of gratefulness, as
Wow.
you know, as all that has led up to in a lot of aspects. My love of technology probably, it began when I was in the service. And let's face it, the military, create a lot of technology we use in civilian streets. So it's quite interesting. But my journey, I guess, in this has started from, learning to type on a manual typewriter, which some people go, that's not technology. And I say, oh, yeah, it was.
It was.
It was still technology, just not as you know it today.
Right.
And, of course, then through the service, moving into all sorts of weird and wonderful types of technology and communications and stuff like that. So then I found myself when I left the service. I left the army to marry Navy, so go figure. But it's the way life works sometimes, doesn't it? So when that happened, I then spent 32, yeah, it's 31 years married this year.
Wow,
So yeah,
congratulations.
thank you. So, I mean, I spent a long time as a Navy wife as well, but I never really left. You don't really ever leave the service. It's still part of who you are and the way you work. And I
Wow.
think that is part of that journey and the resilience that you build and taking that knowledge forward. So I ended up working with a whole bunch of different industries and organizations throughout that kind of thing. So my tech journey then, you end up working in telecommunications. I then working in sales and marketing and call centers and customer service. And, it got to a point after I did a lot of what I call murders and acquisitions. HR will understand that term. After about 3 years or so of doing murders and acquisitions, I needed some time out. I did have an unfortunate little breakdown as a result of some of that, and I said, right, that's it, I've had enough, I'm leaving the corporate world. And on a sideline, I'd already been doing and working in complementary health, so I went and worked in a clinic for a while in complementary health side of things. And but after a while there is when I realized that it was actually the world I left that actually needed those things that were in the complementary health. So then when I came back and, after all of that, I then started to combine all those experiences and approaches and methods and those kinds of things, hence the mixology. And this also comes from things, and you'll see this from a lot of the work that's being done in the mindfulness now, the well-being programs that are being put through organizations, and especially too, having worked in the current environment in the last couple of years, that we're really starting to recognize and understand people's more personal environment combined with the corporate now. You no longer have to wear a suit to be recognized for the knowledge and the value you bring from in here, right? And I think that's a really important shift. And then, of course, you had the laptop and a plug and you could go anywhere in the world. Now we're actually laptop on the lap, still sitting in bed with a cup of coffee, Zooming along with everyone else. But I still think the most fascinating technology is the human brain and that sort of thing. The cool thing about the career is that it can be done from anywhere, right? This kind of career can be done from anywhere. And it's been proven tech is not the only career you can now do remotely. So there's a lot of other things that can be considered from that point. And then it was actually after my husband retired from the Navy that we had the opportunity to come and explore and live in Europe. And that's how I ended up in France, was after that. And we've now been here 7 years. So new languages, exploring cultures, understanding exploring different types of people and how that works. So I think there's a lot to be said for, those connections that are being built on a more international level. And it's how I ended up then through the career that I've had and I'm going to give her a call out, Michelle Coombs. It's your fault I got to the Women Tech Conference this week. What a glorious gift it was that she got me a ticket for this. This week has been an explosion, an absolute explosion. I've been completely submersed in so many different categories of stories, experiences, just a host of incredibly forward thinking. We've got people that are just starting in the career. We've got people that have been in the career for 5 decades, and anything and everywhere in between, different types of industries, companies. We've got, everything from subject matters, fintech, AI, deep data scientists and mathematicians. We've got leadership experts. We've got psychologists. The gambit of seriously, it's as I said, I've got a bit of a brain fake this week. I'm going to have a real time out to just let all the knowledge sort of soak in and coalesce. So I'm so grateful for this week because it's opened up again another world.
Wow.
and
Wow.
channels and connections and working groups. That's the other fascinating thing with this. We've had working groups this week actually working on the issues, and we've got everything from the new focus. And I say the new focus, it's an old issue, but new focus around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and environment, social responsibility, and governance. And we've had everything from oh gosh, I mean, really, I could talk for hours about what's happened this week at this conference. The speakers, the women, the men that have been in there too, supporting it and speaking.
Wow. Sounds awesome. And we might have to do another connection to get some of those phenomenal women, to come and share some of their takeaways from the conference. That would be great.
Absolutely.
And I love that people connection, because you're going, someone thought enough of you to get you the ticket, connected you again to another potentiality discovered. I love that. And something earlier that you said that resonated with me that I wanted to explore a little bit. You talked about, and we had talked about this in our conversation, the world that you had left was the world that really needed what you had. Can you talk a little bit about that to us? The world that you left had what you really needed, what you had.
Yeah, I mean, something came up this week in conversation which I thought was really interesting, called knowing your worth. And certainly after the experiences that I'd had when I left, I was in no way, shape, or form in a position to provide some of that need, to some of that need. And so I think it's very important that we recognize where we are at in our own journey and what's required at that time. That is definitely extremely important. The bringing, as a mixologist, bringing those different approaches and things together and creating that unique cocktail, I guess, of what different, whether individuals or an organization requires. There are certain filters you need to build and have in place to be able to do that. And it's only through learning certain competencies and being immersed in other philosophies and cultures that help you understand and build those filters that are required. And remembering that your experience is not someone else's experience. And this is a lot to do with emotional intelligence, emotional agility as well. So, I mean, the whole reason why EI is such an important competency and skill set is because it really taps into when someone is having an experience, there's something in what they describe. And excuse, that's one of our hay tractors going by.
Okay.
But there's something that taps inside us that says, oh, I recognize that. I understand that. I've had something similar. And that's something that's really stood out this week in the conference too. One of the Elementary health I work in is Polynesian healing systems, and I've spent like 20 years in that, and I love it. And I mean, it's even thinking about, for example, even the word, a lot of people go, aloha, 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 and they don't think about that in the Hawaiian language, there's like 4 even more levels that the word actually delves into. We're doing it right now. Okay. So, the very fact that ha means breath of life, right? Part of Hawaii. Okay. I live in the supreme manner that rides on the waters of the breath of life. So the fact that in this life, we only have so many breaths to expend. Okay. And so when you choose to speak with someone, or you choose to present, or you're going to do workshop, or you're having a meeting with your team, or someone has asked to speak with you, that's a breath that you're never going to get back. It's done. It's there. So there's an understanding that this is a gift. I've given you my breath here. There's no getting that time back. And the same, we need to switch it around and understand in the communication. Communication is 2-way.
Mhm.
If I'm just telling, that's broadcasting. That's not communication.
Mhm.
If we're having an exchange, that's
Mhm.
real communication. That's
Mhm.
conversation.
Mhm.
And the fact that you have chosen to spend your time and your breath with me in this, and whoever is listening with us,
Mhm.
that's important.
Mhm.
That's something and I'm grateful to you for in providing the opportunity and having the conversation and expending however many breaths that you've taken to have this conversation. And it
Wow.
extends further. Dr. Suzanne David, I love her work in emotional agility. And one of the things she talks about, because she's from South Africa, is the Zulu greeting, Sawubona, because it means I see you.
Mm.
It's more than words. It's more than a polite hello. It's not like, and the same, as I said with the Hawaiian thing, when I say aloha, in this moment, I share my breath with you. The same with the Zulu greeting. I recognize the worth and the dignity of you. I see you. You are
Mhm.
present, and I acknowledge your presence here in this moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that what you mean when you say flourishing humans, exceptional experiences?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do together. That's part of
Yeah.
when we connect, when we share our knowledge, when we discover the possibilities through having these conversations, we flourish. And our potential is having those exceptional experiences. So
Mhm.
whether you want to look at it at a philosophical level, whether you want
Mhm.
to look at it on a tech process level, or
Mhm.
how we're designing AI and what are those personalities and what's the depth of the human AI interaction we go to,
Mhm.
these are core things. These are core values and
Mhm.
behaviors and ways of being that humans
Mhm.
have always had.
Mhm.
But I believe that we're in that stage where we are rediscovering that humanity in this new technology context,
Mhm.
which is why we now have all this discussion around ethical AI and emotion AI, and why EU Commission and Canada and Australia and there's the AI Ethics Lab and lots of other organizations that are focused on the trustworthy AI and providing those guidelines and principles by which we're going to be living with these emerging and new technologies.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to pivot slightly and ask you, I mean, you're very passionate as a person, but what about your life or your work are you most passionate?
Wow. Oh, most passionate. There isn't one, because
Okay.
every day I'm different. Every
Mhm.
day I'm in a different space.
Mhm.
And what I do is I work with what I have. I love
Mm.
my artwork, my
Mhm.
photography. If I can go and spend some time, mucking around on a canvas and mixing colors, I'll do it. If I want
Mm.
to, I mean, at the moment it's perfect season. There's a lot of a lot of baby sheep around, and there's a couple of foals in the other farmers' fields and stuff. I can go for a walk. It's almost warm enough for an Aussie to go swimming in the pool.
Mm.
Um, almost, not quite.
Almost.
um, I think, what am I most passionate about? I think the journey, whatever the journey is.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. I think, yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna pivot again because you're in France, which we've shared with those that are on various platforms. We're talking to Simone Joe Moore, who's a thought leader in humanizing IT plus plus plus. And what happens in France does not stay in France, including the wine. Share it all around the world. I'm going to ask you what kind of wine that is and whether or not it's something you drink every day or some, But you're in France. Tell us where you are in France, because you and I talked a little bit when I came to France, a little bit more about your background and where you are. Where are you in France? And give us an idea what's behind that idyllic look behind you. Where are you?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work or if it's too slow. Can I lift up a little bit? How
Yep,
is
it's
that?
lifting. It's lifting
I don't know if that. Yeah,
a little bit.
it's a garden field view. The Okay, so location-wise, because there are so many different places in France that you can explore, and
Mhm.
they are very different to each other. A lot of people think France is France, or a lot of people think France, south of France. They automatically think that. I actually live in the southwest.
Okay.
So if you were to take a line from Paris and go directly south, I'm about 5 hours south of Paris. I'm
Okay.
actually I'm in the area of which the region of Occitanie or L'Occitane. And within each region, there are their own little like states, I guess, or departments. And
Okay.
I'm in the Lot. And I'm very close to what they call like a valley of 1,000 chateaux.
Oh,
We have the old home folk forests. They still hunt boar and deer here. And before anyone goes crazy about the hunting, they actually do eat it. Okay, it's
yeah.
food. So
Okay.
I'm just because I'm not really fond of hunting, right?
Gotcha.
But it's not
Ooh,
just about tradition. It's
yeah.
actually, yeah.
Yeah.
And before COVID, we used to have the giant village. Each went at the end of that season, and what we caught was actually shared across the whole village, all cooked, and we'd have these wonderful fetes.
Oh, wow.
I love it. There's also the other interesting facet of where I live is that this area has been lived in since prehistoric times. A lot of people think castles, chateaus, medieval knights, which it has. Hey, I want to get medieval on you? Oh yeah, there's lots of that here. It's great, love it. But the other thing that's fascinating are
Mhm.
actually the caves that have been discovered around here, and there's a lot of prehistory here. So there are fascinating cave paintings of
Hmm.
bison and all sorts of things to explore. We wanted to live in this area particularly. We didn't want to live in some of the areas because they were too much like Australia, like in terms of the flora and fauna and stuff. And so, in a sense, so we came here to experience living in France.
Mhm.
That was the point. So we are in a farm and forest area, and who knows? Next time we shift, we'll probably go back towards the ocean, I think.
Wonderful. Awesome. And so, because you talked about there being chickens and other things around, so you're kind of in a farmland area. And
Oh,
so,
if anybody is on a farm and they have chickens, do you have, from when I was a little kid, do you have any idea how exciting it is when you crack open an egg and you get a double yolker? That was always considered good luck in my family.
got it. Got it. Got it. Okay. And you have some wine. So, is this the normal thing in France that you have a glass of wine in the evening? And what kind of wine is that for those that might want to go out and rush and get their bottle?
Okay, this particular glass of summer is perfect for rosé. I didn't want I love my reds. Do love my reds, um, and in particular, I still have my cooking apron because I do a lot of cooking, and it actually has Australian reds, so it has a red kangaroo as well as a red bottle of wine on it.
Mhm.
But it's summertime, so it's nice to have a really cool glass of rosé. I like my dry wines. I'm not into sweet. And this particular one is from our region, and it's called Aude, so Aude. And it is from the region or from the area around Carcassonne. So if anyone's interested, just look up Carcassonne. Of
Mhm.
course, the Provençal rosés are incredible. So it's all that southwest region with the rosés I particularly enjoy on the hot summer evenings. But we're also only 4 hours from the Spanish border. So I
Oh,
also have a penchant for having sangria.
wonderful. Okay. Well, we're at 12:59. I am excited that you spent this time with me. We're going to definitely have you back to talk more about emotional agility and humanizing IT and all of the great work that you've done. And maybe we can get you to invite some other of your colleagues who attended this Women's Tech
Definitely.
Conference. That would
Oh,
be
yes.
great. If you will close us out with a toast of gratefulness. I don't have anything to toast with because it's 1 o'clock here,
Oh,
Simone, so I can't toast the wine at 1. But if you could just do a toast of gratefulness for our viewers to encourage them to think more intentionally about gratefulness and what we already have to work with, I would really appreciate that as a fitting close.
you know what? I really, in every language, in every country, there's a different way of saying cheers, right? Prost, all those sorts of, there's a lot of different ways. In Finland, they say kippis, there's a lot of different ways of saying. I really like the French one. It's a single word, but it can cover so many different things. And really, the word just translates to health. And we can have health in our physical, mental, emotional, health in our organizations, health in knowledge, healthy, the health can translate to all the facets that we live and breathe in. So in France, it's very simple. It's santé.
Santé. Wonderful. Thank
And
you,
really,
Simone.
health to
Thank you,
you all.
Simone. Thank you, Joe Moore, for being with us. And those of you, I know this has been a fascinating discussion and exciting to me. I hope that you are inspired by watching and hearing from Simone Joe Moore, and you can follow her on LinkedIn. But I hope that it inspires you to think about what you already have to work with, what before you identify the gaps in your life. What are the capabilities that are within you, within your team, within your organization, within your ecosystem that you can both be grateful for, but discover the full potentiality of those before you start to measure any gaps and to go to new levels and new areas. You might find out that the world that you're ready to leave is the very world that's calling you because you have what it needs. And so I hope this has all of you, like it has for me, exploring and discovering potentialities of today through connecting and sharing knowledge and making places of psychological safety where we can explore and fully use what we have today. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope you will click, share, and tag 5 of your closest connections, 5 of your closest Facebook friends or Twitch TV or YouTube events, or whomever is within the circle of relationships that you have, in the hopes that you will inspire them to live in the center of their passion and do it on purpose. Have a grateful weekend. Thank you all for joining us.